What's up, guys? We are back with another Super 7 Ultimates Transformers Wave 1 review, taking a look at the other Action Master to complement BOMBSHELL in Wave 1. We're taking a look at BOMBSHELL. BOMBSHELL, of course, is an Insecticon, but he also was an Action Master, and that's where the inspiration for this particular figure comes from. Now, he gets the same sort of packaging treatment, so you've got foil embossed purple artwork of BOMBSHELL, you've got that black grid patterning, and then the back gives you a purple, slightly more traditional color for Decepticon logo. Now, of course, you can pop this slipcover off, and then you've got him there with all of his accessories in the big window. You've got your Action Master style Transformers logo down there on the bottom, and then you've got, similar, just like all the other figures, you've got that sort of ranking, power level rating system on the back with his little schematic kind of artwork. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Ultimates BOMBSHELL. So we started with an Action Master. We're going to end with an Action Master. And this guy is, of course, one of the Insecticons, but this is, well, again, his Action Master form. So he got a different interpretation in the vintage toy line that was essentially, Action Masters are basically just action figures, and this is a Ultimates interpretation of that. And of course, being Ultimates, it is that same kind of design, but this being a cartoon focused line in many ways, it kind of gets a toony look also. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. He's very similar to Bonsaitron, and he has one of the big limitations that Bonsaitron also shares. So we've got a head that can look up pretty good. He can look down, well, he can look down a little bit. You do have a little bit of tilt, give him a little bit of attitude. You got rotation, but he only goes so far before he hits his, shoulder pylons there. Arms, spin, they only go out this far, though. This is worse than Bonsaitron's. So he really does not have any range on his arms to go, outwards from his body to the side. Definitely a big hindrance. I'm really surprised. After seeing Starscream and Optimus, I'm really curious why they all don't share the same drop-down shoulders. I know it wouldn't necessarily fix him because he has so much more going on up here, but it would have helped. So I'm curious if that can be changed down the road, or if it's something that's just going to happen with the rest of the figures, or maybe it's just an Action Master thing. So he does have a severe limitation when it comes to going outward at the shoulder. You do have a bicep swivel. We've got our single-jointed rotating elbow, so it's a pin, so there's still rotation at the elbow and the bicep, and you get basically 90 degrees. Again, this is one of those weird things where the Action Master figures have bad shoulders in terms of range, but they have good elbows, whereas the other figure, like Optimus specifically, has weird range at the elbows. It's curious why the designs are so different. We've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. You've got a crunch. Surprisingly, they still managed to hide this in there really well, so he does have a little bit of a crunch. And then you've got your waist twist. Legs go out. You can almost get him to do the splits, almost. Kick forward all the way. Kick backwards a good bit. You got your twist there. Single jointed knee, of course, big chunky knee. And then at the feet, you know exactly what the problem is going to be down here. He's got this massive, massive ankle calf situation that also covers a large part of the foot. So he does have some hinge, and what's really weird is that the foot is like a softer PVC kind of material. It's not a hard plastic. And then there is a slight bit of rocker in there, and since the feet, don't actually get hindered by the plates here when it comes to touching the ground, the rockers do work. They're just really minimal. So he does have that as a slight hindrance. The big problem with this guy in terms of articulation and posing is going to be undoubtedly his inability to get his arms out to the side. That's pretty much all he can do, but otherwise he's very much an Ultimates kind of figure. He's essentially what you expect him to be outside of this. Now, all that said, of course, my big focus with a lot of these lines in many ways is always the looks. And after going through the other figures, I'm pretty happy with the visuals across the board when it comes to this line. This one might be my favorite though. Something about the colors, and I like BOMBSHELL's appearance in this format, in this form factor, so I think he looks pretty cool. I'm not going to, argue that having a little orange on this figure isn't helping him for me, but I do like his design, I like his color scheme, and I like the overwhelmingly boxy nature of this particular figure. It does, of course, get in the way of him moving really well, but he looks cool, and I'm really happy with the overall product here. So he's got nice silver metallic all over the shoulders. So, you know, these big problem areas right here are accentuated by a very nice metallic sheen. You've got, you know, really clean paint throughout. I don't really have any issues to speak of. You know, the blacks, the purples, the oranges. The Decepticon logo is tampoed really nicely on that chest there. And he just looks really cool. That's essentially what it comes down to for me when it comes to this figure, is I think he looks cool. There is a decent amount, but not tons, of greebling kibble design on him. So, you know, you've got little design elements on the crotch area. You know, you've got little bits and bobs and doodads as far as just breaking up the sculpt on the arms, on the torso, and of course down here on his monster calves. He does have a port on the back that is very useful, and we'll talk about that here shortly. One thing that I'm really happy to see with this guy is how his pack-in buddy manages to work better than Bonsaitron's does in terms of what it did in the vintage line. So he does have a port that we're going to get to use here shortly. But I think ultimately what it comes down, no pun intended for this guy, is just the overall look of him in this robot mode. I think looks cool. Colors are really nice and vibrant, saturated. They very much match from different parts. You know, that can be a thing from time to time where different parts with different plastic tolerances don't look the same in terms of color, but I think he's very consistent throughout. And then we've got what I really like the most about him is his head sculpt. I love, you know, the little doodad that sticks out the top of his head, the very like knight's mouth guard that he has with the actual holes there, almost like he's breathing through it, and those super piercing green eyes against that black head just works. It very much breaks him up, and it adds a nice little pop of color up at the top of the figure, where otherwise he's just black and silver. So he's pretty cool looking. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. I think it's a neat design that translates really well into figure form. Granted, this is a figure design translated into a different figure form, but I think it works well in the confines of Ultimates. Now for some size comparisons, here we've got other Transformers Ultimates just to, you know, knock those out. So we've got Bonsaitron, the counterpart to Bombshell really, and Optimus. Since Optimus is the larger figure in the wave, he's not, you know, humongous by comparison, but he does have about a head-ish on both of these guys. So you can see that they're probably the more average size when it comes to Ultimates in general. And then let's swap out Optimus for, you know, like a regular human Ultimates figure. So here is, you know, Conan, and he is, of course, a very normal, average, humanoid Ultimates figure. And then let's swap out Bonsaitron for another Ultimate. So here is Bebop, and you can get an idea of how much bigger Bebop is than your average figure. And, of course, Bonsaitron does look a little bit smaller by comparison. And then let's do Marvel Legend. So here he is with Wolverine. Of course, Wolverine is small for Legends. And then let's move Bebop aside, and here is another 7-inch scale figure, but not Ultimate, so the Masterverse Man-at-Arms from Mattel. And then one more, why not? He's handy. Here is the Figuarts Boba Fett. Not for any real reason other than he's around and to give you a different, slightly smaller size comparison when it comes to other figure lines. So you can see he's going to mesh really well with Ultimates in general. 7-inch stuff, he's going to work really well. And then, of course, he's going to tower over most 112 normal-ish kind of stuff. Now, as far as accessories goes, Bombshell does have a pretty decent spread, and it's in a different way than some of the other figures. So Optimus is really impressive because he has so much weird stuff. Bombshell's impressive to me because of what it is, where it comes from, and how they were able to incorporate his pack-in buddy, Needler. So to start with, you know, we've got some extra hands, and I do have a question about these because I'm not really sure. Maybe I've got a wrong one, but we've got fists on him in the box. So we've got a vertically hinged right gripping hand here. We've got a horizontally hinged gripping hand on the left, and then I've got two sets of trigger finger hands that are horizontally hinged. So I'm not really sure. Some of these seem to be different. Like this is not the same as this. Like they're different. So maybe one of them is supposed to be just to be a bigger gripping hand because the weapons on this figure do have super big handles, which is pretty normal for the rest of this line, but they just seem a lot bigger right now. So he does come with some guns. So he's got two. They are both unpainted, which I wish they would have painted these to some degree. So this is kind of like his G1 gun, his Insecticon gun, and this is his Action Master gun. So you've got two different options. They're very similar in terms of what they are, but they are 100% unique from each other at the same time. And as you can see, I mean, the handle on this thing is just huge. The other guns for the other figures are also really big too, but just to point it out. So maybe I'm not mistaken about some of those hands. I think one of the gripping hands is just extra big to accommodate a little bit better. But these look great. I mean, the sculpt is fantastic. They could definitely use a little bit of weathering or some dry brushing or something, but I'm really happy to see that they got both of those guns in there. And then we get this little guy. So this is Needler, and you know, so BOMBSHELL got Razor Sharp, his little buddy, and it doesn't move. It has no moving parts, doesn't do anything. This guy does move, so the head moves up and down, and it can swivel. That's all it does, but that's better than nothing, right? And he's an adorable little bug robot guy. No paint on him, really, in terms of, you know, his core color, so he's green, and then you've got the black legs. He could actually hold him as a gun if you wanted to. So like this hand right here, you could hold him if you need to, if you wanted to do something like that. He's able to hold him with that hand. It's one of the tighter gripping hands. But what you can do is you can pop this guy on his back, and that's the port I mentioned earlier. So he becomes like a backpack. I think it was like attack mode or whatever he was called in the vintage line, where he has Needler on his person. And then what you can do, pop the head off, pop his head off, and it can go on BOMBSHELL's head, because this was also a thing. I want to say that the head didn't replace it. I can't remember. But yeah, this is pretty cool. It's incredibly goofy. Probably not the best display option, but I can't argue the fact that it's fun to actually be able to do this. So, you know, where Razor Sharp is cool to have with BOMBSHELL as a pack-in, and I kind of wish he did a little bit more, Needler kind of does all the things that I need him to do. So I do find that to be a little bit more impressive. And this guy just looks really cool. I think he's my favorite of the bunch when it comes to, well, there's only two, but he's my favorite of the bunch just because he's got a little bit more personality, a little bit more of a cleaner sculpt in many ways, and the colors, I mean, the colors really pop. So this bright green definitely is going to pop against your purple Action Master BOMBSHELL here. So some good stuff. You know, I'm happy to see that these two guns were included for sure, the two different versions, but this guy is really where it's at in terms of all the stuff you can do to just play around with him. So yeah, overall, really happy with this guy. He does, of course, have one big drawback, one big negative when it comes to articulation, being those shoulders. I can live with the ankles not being able to move all that much. That's something that a lot of figures have to deal with from time to time. But the shoulders definitely pose, no pun intended, a challenge just to move him around and get him into more dynamic posturing. He does, however, look fantastic. You know, I definitely think that among these figures right now, he's probably my favorite. You know, I waited till the very end to even open him, and I'm really happy with the way he looks. Just in a general sense, I think he looks fun. I think he looks cool. And then, of course, he does come with a really solid array of accessories. Love his weapon, love his hands, and I'm really happy to see that his buddy, Needler, is able to actually work better than Razor Sharp with BOMBSHELL. Being able to use the head on BOMBSHELL, being able to put him on his back, just is a throwback to that vintage toy and how it all worked, and I think it's really cool to see that they were able to incorporate that into this figure. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Transformers Wave 1 BOMBSHELL. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.